I think you would be the first agency to be doing this, Kiran, in this field.
I don't know, but it's got fabulous results.
Yeah, I think it's nice, just the way to bring out these stories. I
Yeah,
like,
and all clients are now friends, no? So there is
yeah,
so much of so much of warmth to the whole thing. And
I
I'm
think you've
really,
also carried these journeys long. So that's one thing I
yes,
see with you particularly.
yeah,
Typically, relationships in your, so to say, craft can be fleeting, but I think
correct.
you have this longevity in the relationships,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
matters.
yeah. 20 years in some cases. Yeah.
So and if you don't travel that evolution, that depth will also not come. So yeah, I think that's the key.
Rochana, is it okay now?
Relationships in
We're
your,
live, no?
so to say,
So
craft can be fleeting. I think you
Correct.
have. There is some echo. Huh? I'm just trying to give you feedback if that's all right. Now there's not there, but the earlier conversation.
Mm,
No echo now. Okay, we're
yeah.
good.
Rochana, you can start now. You can start the countdown. Good afternoon, viewers. Welcome to episode 3 of the Chlorophyll podcast, to a special edition to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Chlorophyll. Today, we have a very special person to learn from, Chandan Agrawal. Chandan Agrawal is currently the CEO of Eternia, which is part of Hindalco, the world's largest aluminium company, which is part of the venerable Aditya Birla Group. Chandan has worked in no less than 8 markets around the world, in no less than 8 sectors around the world, including a management consultancy. So you can imagine the wealth of experience that we will be able to tap into today. Chandan and Chlorophyll started work in 2020, and we have had this exciting journey which we will hear about from Chandan himself. So, Chandan, going straight into, because we would rather have more time with you than talk about Chlorophyll. So, when you came to Chlorophyll, I remember one of the things you said was the reason why you chose Chlorophyll is, in my first meeting, I said, no, 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 I'm not asking you to spend crores on mass media. And that's why you said, okay, now let me hear about it. So the first thing, if you can tell us, in your own mind, you had been given this extremely challenging mandate that Mr. Agarwal, you are the wedge, you are going to lead the arrow that will take Hindalco into B2C, and you had to set up this entire business from scratch. So what was it that you were expecting the brand to do with that business? Because that's where we started, right, together.
Yeah. Kiran, first of all, thanks for having me here. And
It's our privilege.
you gave me a very generous introduction. But looking at my predecessors in the first two episodes, I think it has something to do with my hair and not all the things you said. Okay,
That's
so
good,
that's
that's
nice.
good.
But Kiran, I think we have a lot of affection for chlorophylls, and for me, it's today more a conversation along with you of what we've created.
Yes, yes, yes.
And I think what I want to say, relative to I think the earlier participants who came, our journey is still a work in process. But yeah, it's
Correct.
been a great journey. So, so yeah, I think Kiran, I have to say that it's been a it's always a privilege when you have a backing of something which is more than 100 years old, has the scale
Correct.
and size of what Eternia has, both in terms of Aditya Birla Group and in terms of Hindalco, it's the largest aluminum company in the world. I think so. In some ways, the right to play is already there. I think
Right.
so. That's what's different for what you would call a startup like ours, and in no ways would I would relate it to all the challenges which startups who are founder led. So I think that context matters. Though we are
Yes.
startup, we have a massive upside, or I would say endowment in terms of right to play. So I think
Yes.
the job at hand, like you rightly said, was to create a right to win, and in a way that we have not done before. So we've not played in certain markets, we've not played, and so this was one massively high potential market, and that's really our context. So really, it was right to creating right to win. Now, like you rightly said, in a lot of markets which are B2B, your heritage, I think what you've created over time helps. But when you get to B2C, it's different, and therefore the brand, really plays an important role. So I think I would like to say that the advantage we had is that uh, you have the right to play. You also have more patience. So all of
Got it.
that really drives a lot of thinking, because I think it's not about right and wrong, but I think our understanding and orientation towards value is a little longer arc of time. So
Mm.
that drives a lot of your thinking, whether it's branding or otherwise. So I think that's another important context, that our time horizon has longer view. Our understanding of value is a little more enduring value over time rather than any kind of
Mm.
climax
Mm.
short horizon. So I think given that context, I have always told you that, and like you rightly said, we are baniyas, we are businessmen. And, so when I spoke to my team, they said, Chandan,
If I can, if I can
yeah.
just point out, just yesterday I got this interesting snippet about Baniya's. 6% of
Uh,
the market cap of BSC is owned by Baniya's.
oh my God. So yeah, I mean, I just want to say that. So I think it's more to relate with to say that our learning is that businessmen and craftsmen, when they come together, I think that's when magic
Beautiful.
happens.
Beautiful.
And so, maybe this is our interpretation. We thought marketing and branding हम लोग को ज़्यादा समझ में नहीं आ रहा है. So let's find craftsmen for this. And I think that's where we, saw you and your colleagues, and we said, let's find someone who also works with businessmen.
Correct.
And then again, so that marriage of finding someone who understands long arc of time, understands the beauty between craftsmanship and business. I think so. That was another way we thought about this whole thing about creating this business, which is in a domain of service, it's in a domain of consumers. Let's find, collaborators, allies who understand that you are a craftsman, we are businessmen. How do we do this together? So I think that's the second part we looked at, particularly related to marketing and branding. I think the third piece, which, again, it's a matter of what's your learning model as an organization, as individuals building something. Uh, when you talk about crafts and you talk about a lot of these nuanced areas in business, you could take a gospel approach to doing things, right? And you could say, okay, these guys are great, and let's just focus on the gospel they have and deliver that. I think what helped with our partnership with you is that having a process helps a lot.
Right.
What we found different is that here is a craftsman who has a process that kind of brings that platform for everybody to engage. So you
Correct.
step away from gospel. Yeah, you have some patterns, and but you still have a process which anchors everyone. So I think, again, focusing on the marketing and branding, they said, okay, if you have to build this, if there's a process, we can build it more inclusive. So we don't have
Correct.
any alpha orientation in creation, because creation is no
Correct.
longer about alphas. It's all team
Absolutely.
sport. So I think that's the third piece which really helped us, that how do we stay close to process patterns and still draw on everybody's experiences.
Correct.
So, having the advantage of right to play, finding the right partners who appreciate craftsmanship and business and the magic it brings, and then they have a process to keep everybody engaged. So I think those three things, as we looked at, became, and it's all evolutionary. I'm not sure we had all this insight, but talking to you,
Yeah.
talking to others, so I think that became the anchor of how we thought about this whole approaching this business slash marketing and branding for Eternia.
Yeah. So that, Chandan, beautifully segues into my next area of exploration with you. You were fascinated by this idea of inside out and outside in. Because if
Yeah,
you look at the
yeah,
textbooks say that brands are a summation of the perceptions held by all the stakeholders, but that actually doesn't work when you're creating a
yeah,
new brand, because there isn't anything outside. And you were fascinated by this idea of first articulating, institutionalizing the inside out view of the brand, and then
yeah.
validating. You want to talk about that because you
This,
always
I think, Kiran was our biggest dilemma, I have to say. And I personally, went through a lot of, sort of say, you know, uh, different views on this, spoke to different people, and saw different patterns. And I have to say that besides all the bells and whistles of marketing and branding, this was seminal about the approach which you suggested. Now, how we came to this perhaps is, anchoring the whole thought around identity
Hmm.
somehow appealed to us.
Hmm.
So it's not about right and wrong, but again, saying that who do you want to be? I think if you start there
Correct.
and then you say, okay, what's your identity? Then I think this inside out and outside in dilemma solves very fast.
Right.
So I
Right.
think the conviction which you gave us, कि finally, if your identity is to be a category, a creator kind of
Yes.
organization in this
Yes.
ecosystem, then that's your identity. And
Yes.
so, yes, of course, we want to serve customers, but finally, customers will choose you for who you are. So that took a little conviction, self-belief in the early stages, and I have to say we leaned a lot on what your experiences were.
Yes.
I have to also say that we had the opportunity, given the early stage of our business, to also experiment, because to give credit to the more evolved businesses where stakes are high. I think the whole model of experimenting with an idea and saying,
Yes.
okay, this looks right, can we progress with it? And Kiran has seen something, and yeah, I think what he's saying is you got to integrate with who you are. So I think
Yes.
that's what helped us. I have to say 90% of the market participants in your ecosystem recommended a outside in view. And I think that came from the perhaps the evolution of late stage businesses, which are so competitive intensity, matured
Correct.
market. So our
Correct.
context is also like it's a massive opportunity with the largest player hardly holding 1% of the market share. So,
Correct.
frankly, bringing all that together gives you the conviction that this inside out model works. So, I think our context was there, but that clarifying and anchoring the whole thing on our identity came through that kind of a process. And yeah, I mean, we did lean on your pattern on this. So, I think again, we evolved to that because largely because of our context and the conviction you gave us. And with
Yes.
the thought that, okay, we'll experiment with this idea, see where it goes. But I think more importantly, what came out from this is what helped us now. And if I look at it in hindsight, is this whole thought that if this is your identity, then you got to create the category. Now, I mean, the
Correct.
business model is there for the last million years. Windows are there everywhere. But I think this idea that if this is your identity, then you got to recreate this category. So I
Hmm.
think that's another anchor you put into our orientation, not only in branding. So yeah, everybody wants to be distinctive, everybody wants to be competitively ahead, but I think this category creation idea again leaps the way you think about things. So we
Yeah.
had innovations we had done, but we said, yeah, your category creation karni hai, to you have to sharpen it. What you're
Yeah.
doing, how do you position it, and you remember the things we did. So I think identity was an important anchor, and I think you call it in a different way. I think identity. So
Yeah. Yeah.
those are things which
Looks
shifted
like.
us in our thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Chandan, let's go from that word that you used, ecosystem. I
Yeah.
think, as I remember, as you gained confidence in the brand, you actually changed the pricing, and you were confident
Yes.
enough, you know, be at a premium to market leaders.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is so encouraging for us. So let's take that ecosystem. If we remember, outside of office when we talked, we said, Chandan, you must in your category become like Maruti. You should not only create the category, you should create the ecosystem. And I
Yeah.
remember that fabulous launch that you created for Fabricators, because you said
Yeah. Right.
Fabricators are key to my
Yes.
businesses. To
Yes.
their success will define my success, and
Yeah.
therefore it is my job to create that ecosystem. You want to talk about that ecosystem that you created? I believe
Yeah.
some of
So
them have gone on to have their own IPOs, right?
yes. 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 No, I think. Yeah. So here, Kiran, the India story over the last,
Okay.
so let's just say 30 years has played out and has a very clear pattern that finally, in a diverse country like ours, if you don't play like a team sport and raise the whole ecosystem,
I
neither
see.
will consumers see your impact, nor will the shareholders. Certainly not your employees.
Beautiful.
So, in very mature markets where infrastructure, logistics, market access is very clear, maybe this may not hold true. But I think in our country, one pattern has become clear, and enough companies and organizations done it. Ki you got to play with the whole ecosystem. So that I think you also reiterated, and the India pattern said that this industry's context also is unique in a way that you are giving a customized product in a last mile, and that last mile is kind of managed by a ecosystem partner, what you're calling fabricators and installers. So uh, I think the biggest challenge, Kiran, which we faced, is that we have our own paradigm, being a corporate, coming from that. We have a state of evolution and what we want done, but
Correct.
the clock speed of everybody else in this ecosystem is different.
That's a
Now,
very nice information. Yeah.
yeah, so you can do two things about this clock speed. You can say, you know what, I know it all, and let's everybody move at my clock speed. Or you say, okay, perhaps there's a reason why the clock speed is what it is. So I think one, just this realization ki if you don't want to be a mom and pop store in this business, but you have to be someone at scale, then you
Correct.
have to solve for what's broken in the ecosystem.
Right.
So
Right.
therefore, this commitment to partners and last mile, which I think other brands in different industries have done, became a natural thing for us. Ki you can be great at branding, great at products, but there's a customized last mile service, which that's the moment of truth. So it's being
Correct.
delivered to a partner. So unless your partner is not thinking like the brand, unless your partner is not thinking, okay, I work for Aditya Birla Group and I'm representing something of Aditya Birla Group, and he doesn't bring that passion into that last screw he puts on the window, well, you've not delivered the moment of truth. So, therefore, skill building, therefore, committed relationships. It seems in hindsight we did something very distinctive, but again, they came from these thoughts ki you are a heritage group with,
Correct.
it's not only about money and sales, you also carry a reputation of what you stand for. And therefore, if you want to build something at scale, you cannot do it just because you are running fast and the clock speed of everybody else is not with you. And
Correct.
therefore, if you want to be a market leader, well, you have to give first to the sector. And
Yes.
so I must say, therefore, these choices became more like outcomes. But I think the commitment to act on that, I must say, came from, I guess, who we are, as a group.
As a
We've
group.
done other industries. And so, but none of this is again possible. I want to keep connecting back to the arc of time you want to get things done in. So
Beautiful.
if you want to
Yes.
do fast, you can go and not be committed to partners and get your sales. But if you are creating something more enduring, and therefore then you'll start investing. So that's what we did. I must say that this industry didn't have that earlier. I think some of the people do, but we became very clear this is how we are going to go, because when somebody experiences us, they're experiencing Hindalco, Aditya Birla Group, and it's not only Eternia trying to make a sale. And
Yeah.
so then it became clear, and we adjusted our clock speed to that. Where we put effort rather than in sales is to build the ecosystem. That
Correct.
should create the speed rather than just making a sale. And so
Correct.
with it came how you nurture the ecosystem, how you work with them. And yes, we've been fortunate today. Some of our partners have grown exponentially. Uh, I think the other thing is, you can have a control orientation with an ecosystem, or you can have a more what I would call natural selection, Darwinian sense of your ecosystem. Uh, I think I have. maybe we've realized that frankly natural selection works. It's been working in our evolution forever.
Yes.
So working with partners in a more natural selection model, trying to say, do you own this brand the way we do? Are you trying to be as large and impactful as we are? And I think once you get to that, I've seen Indian entrepreneurs are just outstanding. I continue to believe that.
I know.
So I think both on the demand side and on the supply side, I should say we were lucky to have those kind of partners. But I must also comment that again, our identity and the coherence and the follow through. So it's not just brand and it's communication. So that identity followed through in these choices.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
And so therefore it's not only am I different in the way I'm talking about who I am, but is that choice showing up in everything else? And so that I think that identity showed up then in our
Correct.
choice of ecosystem relationships and how we nurtured them. So yeah, I must say that we were slower, but maybe we were slower to speed up later. Let's see. I mean, that will still show up.
Yeah. 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 It became a touchstone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chandan, also let's talk about the category, because that is
Yeah.
something else which you have done. You've done a lot of process work. You've done a lot of policy work. So
Yeah.
I remember one of the most. It sounded creative, but actually it was factual. This entire idea that for the first time, the Arabian Ocean has more cyclones than ever before.
Yeah.
Only the Bay
Yeah.
of Bengal was famous for cyclones, and
Yes.
therefore Mumbai, being the the skyscraper capital of India, needed safe windows. So this entire category of Viva that you created, just let's tell the audience a little bit of that. That's really a
No, I think
absolute
that's
game.
a great, yeah, and I think that's the other piece which we evolved to. So I think one, so to say, uh, maybe cliches that industries evolve and standards exist, right? And
Right.
quality and what gets delivered to consumers, they evolve faster once you have standards. Now, being the nation that we are, we're still a young nation. A lot of our product standards are still evolving. So that is the context of India. The real estate industry, to give credit to the industry and to the government in some way, I think we've tried to accelerate that since 2016. Of how do we have one of the most expensive real estate in this country, but
Right.
is it commensurate with the quality which is getting delivered to people? And I think the government and the industry has done a lot. Now, different categories in a home, as you would imagine, are getting involved. But again, the opportunity in our categories that was not the case. And so what happened, and again, giving credit to the competitors in our ecosystem, they all said, let's get together
I
and
see.
create this kind of a standard. So what that really did is that if you think of buying jewelry, and let's uh, Titan is a very, and Tanishq is a very favorite brand of mine, and kudos to the Tata Group for what they've created. I think getting into an industry and bringing transparency. So the word
Correct.
products and standard maybe is regulation, but what is the real outcome to a customer? It brings trust and transparency.
Correct.
So, we saw our industry as very similar, that it's a large market. Consumers don't understand what is good, what is great, and what is okay. So,
Correct.
I think this whole concept of regulation came more from the outcome. And you told us, what does consumer understand all this? You are giving me wind velocity so much and all. And he used to keep challenging me, and I said, yeah, what he's finally saying is right. Consumer ko ye sab samajhta nahi hai.
Yeah.
So I said, "Yeah, so what are we trying to do? We're trying to say if you're putting something, do you know is it good, bad, ugly, right?"
Correct.
And
Correct.
that's where we picked up the pattern from, Tanishq to say, what did they do? They brought transparency. Whether it was regulated or otherwise, that's what they brought as market leaders. So even before the regulations came, we said we will create our own kind of standard, and that's where I think the beautiful word of Viva, which is wind, water, air, came out. And I
Yeah.
think what we were trying to communicate to the market is, it's a complicated product. It's last mile. We want you to have a transparent experience of what you should be buying. An
Yes.
application in a bathroom is different, and what kind of product service you need, and then for a balcony is different. So I think Viva was born out of two things. One is the learning from the jewelry industry from Titan. Can we communicate ourselves that we are market leaders who want to be transparent?
Correct. Correct.
And I think the second thing is, if regulations take time, well, at least we are standing out there to say regulations or otherwise, well, let's just say what we are selling and let consumers understand that. I think it's great that the BIS, and the Urban Ministry has now put the standard into
Yes.
notification and gazette. And credit to all the market participants, and I must also say to the customers in this industry, which for us are the large real estate developers. And credit to IIT Delhi who helped make this process very transparent for all ecosystem players. That to say, this standard is not about trying to say products should be expensive. We created this whole platform of creating the standard with the government and market participants saying we just want people to have the transparency of knowing what they're buying. You
Hmm.
want to buy
This is
a great window, well, this is what a great window means, so you pay for that. You want to choose to buy an ugly window, well, that's a choice you made, because this is another thing you always told me, Chandan, let consumer preference be natural, don't try and force anything.
yeah.
So I think so. I think those things really helped, and yeah, I think India is doing many things, and so we've got the right tailwind, I should say, Kiran.
So there is something else magical that you have done, which will be the last question in our conversation today. You have let the concept, the idea, the belief system of the brand seep into your organization.
Yeah,
So the people whom I meet today and what they were 4 years ago when I met them, there is a dramatic, thrilling difference that
thank
I
thank
see.
you.
It is because of this, that you have driven this idea that brand is not just the identity, the logo, the advertising. Brand is what we live. What we do
Yeah.
is the brand. So just your take on how you manage this. I know it's a journey, but still you have done quite a lot in that.
I think there was a point in our relationship where I was feeling a little insecure कि अभी सब काम हो गया अभी क्या है, and then I think one thing I think in your process which you told me is कि though we have an identity, Chandan, how is this integrated into the organization? So I said, okay, how do we do it, Kiran? And I think what connected with us is again the process. It says, okay, so this brand identity, how does it align to values?
Correct.
And then we went
Correct.
through this whole discussion: is it brand values? Is it organization values? And so we went through all that. And then again, we integrated this ki ye alag kyun hai? Going
Correct.
back to this inside out, outside, and should we have a brand value which attracts consumers? Should we be so I think again connecting that dot that no, it's again inside out, it's again
Yeah.
identity. So I think born out of that idea, we also said that if we are a last mile business and finally how people and customers experience us matters, then if people are not happy, I mean, what are we going to do talking all these great things to consumers? So while I've heard it before, but it became more real for me when people say employee equal to customer, right? And so we evolved that third value, which is not customer centricity, but employee equal to customer centricity.
Beautiful.
So
Beautiful.
I think again it got born out of that, so to say, whole discussion. So we were able to bring coherence. Now, what happens when this, what I've observed again over time now, is organization coherence, just becomes very, very, strong, because people feel that who I am, who the organization is, how it shows up with the employees, it shows up with the customers. So I think that coherence is a force which cannot be measured. Is at least I feel it maybe myself as part of the organization, and maybe some you are experiencing. I also see over time that it becomes uh, it becomes more healthy an environment to integrate people as new people come in. So
Correct.
that coherence is something I have discovered, frankly. These are things, I would not normally, but I have discovered that this coherence is a force. And so your brand cannot be just what is communicated. And so therefore linked to identity, linked to value. So therefore that's, I think, the first piece. I think the other thing is, it also told us कि brand sirf बातें नहीं करना है. Frankly, it's about, action.
Yes.
So, so I remember, we used to do digital, or सब लोग वो लोग बोल रहे हैं इनके likes इतने इनके, and we said, यार, is that who we are?
Correct.
And
Correct.
so the people used to be disappointed, we have only 10 likes on this post. So we just said, listen, right now That is not our brand. First, let's put action behind who we are. And I think so that's just the other way the mindset in the organization is set. कि brand बातें नहीं करना है, brand is who you are, or come let's get action on the table. And I
Yeah.
think this word which you all use, RTBs and all, कि कुछ करो यार, तब RTB होगा ना.
Yes.
वो लिखने से थोड़ी होने वाला है. So I think that's just become the mindset in the organization. But I must say, it's that coherence,
Yeah.
and then that inside out, outside in coherence becomes a force. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, it's still, like you said, work in process, but I think that's helped us. It's helped us
Yeah.
a lot.
So, all you viewers out there, you must have realized by now that besides being a client partner, Chandan is a friend. We exchange notes on in dogs and waterfalls to visit. Uh, so, Chandan, I've thanked you in private. So, I must thank you twice over in public for giving us this humongous opportunity to be part of this journey. And one big thank you to the viewers for participating today. If you have any questions for Chandan or for me, I don't know what the methodology is. So here is a question from Sandesh. Do you think that percolating the brand throughout the organization is a perennial journey? So I will leave it to Chandan to answer that because he's living it. I have lived it for 25 years. So Chandan,
No, I think Sandesh, if one anchors in on that, you are putting out there who you are, and who you are is reflected in your organization and what it wants to do. It is a perennial journey. Um, I think as we are an organization, we perhaps use our left brain more than our right brain. But I must say that it's a commitment of staying true to who you are, and putting it out there and striving to do what you want to do for consumers. So yeah, it is a perennial organization journey. And I must say, as you build businesses, the real test of that is how do you integrate new members into your team, because they come from different such brand experiences.
absolutely, absolutely,
So
absolutely.
I think that's what I would say. The real test is whether is that brand idea identity enduring as new members come into your team.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah. Thanks, Sandesh, for joining in.
Yeah. So the oldest brand, Chandan, we have articulated is 1,200 years old. Just to give a flavor of.
Acha, so this is multiple reincarnations which you've brought. Huh? Huh, Kiran?
No, it is a belief system that has lasted 1,200 years, just defined by one single word called custodian. Yeah, Khushbu has a. Do you see brand attorney expanding to newer segments?
No, I think that's a good question. And yeah, I mean, I would love to do it really fast. But again, so Kushbu, what I would say is that this route of who we are, what we are trying to do, and what kind of ecosystem we are playing it, the good news for us is it's scalable. As you know, home as a category is very attractive. What also the way markets are evolving in our space, Kushbu, is that the experience of your service has become more dominant than just your product and everything else. And as you
Fantastic.
think about a home, and some companies are trying to do it very well in the home improvement space, it's not just the product, it's the whole experience of what you go through.
Correct.
So I
Correct.
think, yeah, if Eternia is able to establish its way of working in this product segment, we do think there is scalability elsewhere. uh, One of the things we want to do is evangelize aluminum. We believe it's a recyclable, sustainable metal. It's being adopted by many industries. I think in India, it has some distance to travel, and so we've started with windows. We're trying to figure out technologies of how it can extend into other product segments,
Right.
because recycling is an important anchor as we go forward, and I think aluminum can play that role. So we are in the journey right now, Khushbu, not in terms of the market, but in terms of figuring out how our aluminum technologies can contribute to new product segments. We've done it in Windows, but you hopefully will see something from us.
Wow. If you could do this thing again, what is the one thing you would have done differently?
That's a tough one. I think despite the arc of time which we have in mind, I mean, that would stay constant. But I think I would bring in a team faster.
I see.
Uh, I think we had out of the last 4 years, maybe 2 years, we lost in COVID, and so sometimes we justify that we took it bootstrap. But I would certainly say that I would bring in a team earlier than what we did. Now it's always hindsight whether people would have believed in our journey or not, and maybe if we had built our brand, our identity earlier, faster, maybe if we had a little more success, maybe it would have done. But yeah, if it were possible, I would bring in the team much earlier. That's what perhaps I would do different.
This is a question directly to your Baniya Buddhi. How does one prioritize creating a brand but also being profitable? I think
So
you are one of the first brands that showed profits very quickly
so,
ahead of.
I think my marketing team is going to reminisce all the conversations I have with them. They have exciting ideas. But okay, what I think we'll say is again, Shaurya, the thinking is the arc of time matters a lot. What you define as enduring value matters a lot. I think being clearer about that is very important. So if your arc of time is longer, if your climax or what you're creating is more long range value, the way you do marketing and branding changes. And yeah, so the outcome is then you say, okay, I have an arc of time. Let's kind of in the traditional 4 Ps, as you all would say it, let's get product, price, and getting your ecosystem right. And then yeah, if you have that, you have the footprint, you've got the what Kiran was saying is you've got the product market fit. So then you kind of move to some kind of big bang marketing spending. That's one. I think the advantage you also have in a nascent industry is that you can experiment a lot. So if I combine those thoughts, sure, what I would say is that if you are a little Baniya Buddhi businessman and you are not a filmmaker, you want the craftsman to be happy in your business and you want the businessman also to be happy. I think you run some experiments. So because I've noticed craftsmen are happy with experiments and
Yeah,
businessmen are happy when you have results from experiments. So what I
correct.
would say is that this marriage works, that craft some experiments so the craftsmen are happy. And when you get results, the businessman will put money behind those. So that's the way we've tried to solve it. If you try to go big bang too much too fast, maybe then there is too much tussle between the craftsman and businessmen. So that's at
Yeah.
least one way of unlocking it.
Great. Thank you, Chandan. Once again, thank you very much.
Thanks, Kiran. It was,
And
as
we'll
always, very energizing to be with
yes,
you. Yes. Thank you
we'll
so
keep
much.
that soon. Thank you, viewers. Please keep your suggestions, comments coming on LinkedIn page, and see you in the fourth episode soon.
All the
Bye bye.
best, Kiran, and to Chlorophyll. Congratulations for
Thank
25
you.
years.
Yeah.